Imagine this. You're walking through a museum and you stop before a masterpiece. The painting is a blur of color and light, a symphony of chaos and order. But as you gaze at it, something strange happens. The chaos dissolves, and a singular figure emerges from the canvas. It is a portrait of a man, not just any man, but the man you've been searching for your entire life. He is a work of art, and you are the only one who can truly see him. You feel a deep, soul-stirring connection. You believe you've finally found your one true love, but is he really there? Or are you simply seeing a reflection of your own unconscious desires, your deepest wounds, and your most unfulfilled needs painted onto his face? This is the central deception in the early stages of dating, a psychological sleight of hand so common it has become the default state of modern romance. We do not fall in love with a person, we fall in love with an archetypal fantasy we have projected onto them. The human psyche, in its profound and often desperate search for wholeness, constantly seeks to find its missing parts in the external world. We are drawn to those who seem to possess the qualities we lack, the light we have not yet integrated, or the shadow we have not yet faced within ourselves. This is the dance of projection, a concept deeply rooted in the work of Carl Jung. He taught that the psyche is composed of various archetypes, universal patterns of thought and behavior that reside in the collective unconscious. These archetypes, particularly the anima in men and the animus in women, represent the inner, feminine, and masculine principles. In the early stages of a relationship, we project our own idealized version of the animus, the wise, powerful, and protective male figure, onto a man. We see him not as he is, but as a vessel for our own psychological needs. He becomes the hero of our internal mythology, a savior who will fill the emptiness within. But this is a perilous game. The man you're falling in love with is not the man in front of you. He is a ghost, a mirror, a blank canvas upon which you are painting a portrait of your own unfulfilled self. You're not connecting with his soul. You are connecting with a deeply personal, archetypal image that lives within your own psyche. This is the fundamental mistake, a psychological mirage that leads to heartbreak and disappointment. We are so busy projecting our fantasy that we fail to see the real, imperfect, and human man who is standing right there. The tragedy is that this projected fantasy is a defense mechanism, a way for the ego to avoid the difficult, painful work of individuation. Individuation, the process of becoming a unified and whole individual, requires us to confront our own shadow, the parts of ourselves we have suppressed, denied, or rejected. Instead of facing the void, the loneliness, or the unhealed wounds within, we seek to fill it with another person. We believe that if we can just find the right man, the right hero, all of our problems will disappear. This is why the initial phase of a relationship feels so intoxicating, so all-consuming. The chemistry, the soulmate feeling, the rush of hormones, it's all a powerful biochemical and psychological response to the illusion. You are not falling in love with him. You are falling in love with the reflection of your own potential, your own unintegrated wholeness. You are finally seeing the parts of yourself that you have been too afraid to claim, but you're seeing them in him. And when the illusion inevitably shatters, when the real man, with his flaws, his imperfections, and his human limitations, finally reveals himself, the disappointment is profound. It feels like a betrayal, but it's not. It's simply the end of a beautiful lie. The path to true love begins not by finding the right person to project onto, but by doing the hard, often terrifying work of facing yourself. It means staring into the abyss of your own soul and taking responsibility for your own happiness, your own worth, and your own sense of wholeness. As the Stoics understood, the only thing we have control over is our own internal world. Epictetus taught that we must not seek to have things happen as we wish, but to wish for them to happen as they do, and you will live a tranquil life. This applies to love as well. You cannot control what a man does, how he behaves, or whether he fulfills your fantasy, but you can control your own psychological landscape. True power, true freedom, and true love are born not from finding an external savior, but from becoming one for yourself. And this is where the shadow appears, that deep, disowned part of the self. The shadow is not merely a collection of negative traits, it is a repository of everything the ego has exiled. It holds our unexpressed creativity, our denied power, our unacknowledged wounds, and our deepest fears. We hide it, we deny it, and we run from it, but the shadow is always there, pulling the strings of our unconscious life. The projected fantasy of the ideal man is, in many ways, a flight from this shadow. We seek a partner who is the living embodiment of all the positive qualities we refuse to cultivate within ourselves. He becomes the hero, the protector, the one who is brave, financially secure, emotionally stable, all the things we feel in our deepest core that we are not. The problem, however, is that this man is also a human being. He has his own shadow, his own fears, his own insecurities. The very qualities you project onto him are often the ones he, too, is struggling to integrate. You see him as a pillar of strength, but he is terrified of his own vulnerability. You see him as a beacon of light, but he is constantly battling his own darkness. And in this great cosmic irony, the very man who holds the keys to your projected fantasy is often the one who is most likely to trigger your own unhealed wounds. Consider the dynamic. A woman, seeking her animus, projects onto a man a longing for security and unwavering strength. He, perhaps unconsciously, accepts this role because it feeds his own ego, his need to be seen as the hero. He gives her a feeling of safety, and she, in turn, provides him with the validation he craves. But this is a fragile alliance built on illusion, not reality. What happens when he shows a moment of weakness? What happens when he loses his job, or expresses a fear, or reveals a hidden vulnerability? The fantasy shatters. The hero becomes human, and the woman, in her disappointment, feels betrayed. "You're not who I thought you were," she might say, not realizing she is speaking to her own projected image, not to the man himself. This is the great, silent catastrophe of modern dating. We are a generation of emotional nomads, wandering from one projected fantasy to the next, seeking external fixes for internal problems. We are like spiritual orphans, yearning for a home we have not yet built within ourselves. The Stoics would have a profound and unyielding answer to this madness. They would demand a return to the self, a ruthless and honest reckoning with one's own inner world. They would ask you to become the very thing you seek in another. Are you looking for a man who is calm and unbothered by external chaos? Then learn to cultivate that inner stillness yourself. Are you looking for a man who is strong and reliable? Then build a life of quiet fortitude and self-reliance. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." What is true freedom in this context? It is not the freedom to find the perfect man who will fulfill your every need. It is the freedom from needing him at all. It is the liberation that comes from realizing your own inherent worth, a worth that cannot be given or taken by anyone else. This is the goal of true individuation, to become a whole and complete individual, not a half in search of a better half. A woman who has done the work to integrate her own shadow and embrace her inner wholeness does not seek a man to complete her. She seeks a man to walk beside her, a companion on the journey, not a savior. Her relationships are not a means to an end, but an expression of her own fullness. This is a stark and difficult path, for it requires a radical shift in perspective. It means turning away from the seductive allure of the external, the quick fix of a new romance, and turning inward to face the lonely and often terrifying work of self-discovery. But it is the only path that leads to genuine, lasting connection. It is the only way to build a love that is not based on a projected fantasy, but on the raw, beautiful truth of two whole and sovereign human beings. A love that endures not because it fulfills a fantasy, but because it embraces reality. This process of individuation, this painful, glorious journey inward, is a form of psychological alchemy. It transforms the raw ore of our unintegrated psyche into the gold of true self-possession. The ego's initial fear of solitude, of loneliness, is a powerful illusion. It is the ego's way of avoiding the necessary descent into the underworld of the psyche, where the shadow lurks. But as Marcus Aurelius understood, the kingdom of man is within. True strength comes not from external validation, but from an internal, unshakable foundation of self-worth. It is the ability to stand alone, content and whole, without the constant need for another person to validate your existence or soothe your anxieties. This is not a cold, unfeeling state of being. On the contrary, it is the only way to experience genuine warmth and connection. When a woman has done the deep work of facing her own shadow, the parts of herself that are envious, or insecure, or angry, or fearful, She no longer has to project those fears onto a potential partner. She can see a man as he is, not as a symbol of her salvation or her destruction. She can appreciate his light without idealizing it, and she can accept his darkness without being terrified by it. Her relationships cease to be a negotiation of needs and become an authentic exchange between two sovereign beings. The truly empowered woman understands that a man is not a project. She does not see him as a puzzle to be solved or a broken thing to be fixed. She sees him as a fellow traveler, a complex and imperfect human being on his own journey. She does not need to fill his voids, and she does not expect him to fill hers. This is the cornerstone of mature love, the ability to witness another person in their fullness without the need to control them, change them, or make them into something they are not. It is a love born of quiet observation, of respect for another's autonomy, and of a profound faith in their capacity for their own growth. What you are seeking, in your longing for a man to complete you, is an external validation of your internal value. But your value is not a commodity to be earned or a gift to be bestowed by a man. It is an immutable, inherent quality of your being. Stoic philosophy teaches that our worth is independent of external circumstances, including the approval or love of others. Your value does not increase when a man loves you, and it does not diminish when he leaves. This is a radical and liberating truth. It means you are already enough. You have always been enough. The task is not to find a man who can show you this truth, but to embody it so fully that it becomes your unshakable reality. The final stage of this journey is not about finding the one, but about becoming the one. It is about a fierce and tender commitment to yourself. It is about becoming your own hero, your own protector, your own source of peace and security. It is about cultivating a life so rich, so full, and so aligned with your own highest values that a man's presence is a bonus, a beautiful addition to an already abundant life, not a desperate necessity. This is the ultimate freedom, a liberation from the need to be chosen. For when you choose yourself, when you claim your own wholeness, you become a force of nature, an anchor in a world of projections and fleeting desires. And in that state of radical self-possession, you become magnetic, not in a way that seeks to attract a savior, but in a way that radiates a profound and unshakable sense of self. The true alchemy of love begins in this solitary crucible. It is the crucible of self-awareness, where the heat of honest introspection melts away the false idols of external validation. A woman in this state no longer looks to a man's affection as a measure of her worth. She has learned the profound truth that her value is intrinsic, not something granted by a relationship. She has made peace with her own solitude, not as a lonely waiting period, but as a rich and fertile ground for growth. This is the ultimate rebellion against the cultural narrative that a woman's life is incomplete without a partner. A woman who has faced her shadow, embraced her own inner masculine and feminine, and committed to her individuation, has a different quality of presence. There is a stillness about her, a quiet confidence that does not need to be loud or performative. She is not seeking to be chosen, she is simply being. And in that beingness, she becomes a magnet for what is authentic and real. The men who are drawn to her are not attracted to a projected fantasy because she no longer offers one. They are drawn to the truth of her, to the solid ground of her self-possession. They are drawn to a woman who is not looking for a savior, but a partner. This is the great work. It is the work of turning inward to find the love, the security, and the peace that we have been desperately seeking outside of ourselves. It is the work of understanding that the hero, the king, the protector, is an archetype that must first be integrated within your own psyche. You must become the inner man who provides you with security, who sets healthy boundaries, who defends your worth, and who champions your dreams. You must become your own source of validation. The Stoics would insist on this. Seneca would urge you to become self-sufficient in your virtue and your happiness. He would say that to rely on another person for your joy is to hand them the keys to your tranquility. When the foundation is built on this inner solidity, relationships become a different kind of experience entirely. They are no longer a frantic search for completion, a clinging to another out of fear of being alone. They are an overflow of two full cups. The two individuals come together not to fix one another's voids, but to share in the abundance of their own lives. They are not two halves making a whole, but two whole beings choosing to walk a path together. This kind of love is not a whirlwind of passion fueled by projection. It is a slow, steady burn of respect, admiration, and genuine affection for the messy, imperfect, and beautiful truth of who the other person is. It is a love that says, I see you, all of you, your strengths and your flaws, your light and your shadow, and I love you for the whole of it. This is the highest form of love because it is not based on a delusion, it is based on reality. It is a love that frees both individuals from the impossible burden of being someone else's everything. It is a love that allows each person to continue their own journey of growth, secure in the knowledge that their partner is a fellow traveler, not an emotional crutch. This is not the stuff of fairy tales. It is the stuff of a life well lived. This is the final lesson. The most profound and lasting love story you will ever have is with yourself. And when you commit to that relationship with all your heart, when you show up for yourself in every way, you will discover that the need for a man to complete you has simply faded away. And in that glorious absence of need, you will finally be free. And with this profound internal shift, the very definition of love begins to change. It is no longer a feverish, intoxicating projection that demands another to be perfect. Instead, it becomes an act of quiet, courageous acceptance. This is the ultimate freedom from the shackles of ego and fantasy. The empowered woman understands that true love is not about a lack in her being filled by another's presence, but rather about an abundance within her being shared. It is the love of two individuals standing on their own solid ground, choosing to walk a path together. The initial stages of dating, when approached from this place of self-possession, are transformed from a desperate audition into a calm, observational process. You are no longer frantically trying to determine if he is the one who will save you. Instead, you are simply observing, with clarity and detachment, if this man is a person you would genuinely enjoy sharing your time and energy with. You can see his flaws without turning away, because you have already made peace with your own. You can appreciate his strengths without idealizing them, because you have already cultivated your own. The frantic need to know what we are is replaced by a peaceful curiosity about who we are as individuals. This is the antidote to the great delusion of modern love. It is the fierce, gentle work of psychological sovereignty. You learn to become your own emotional anchor. When a man is inconsistent, your sense of self-worth does not plummet. You can observe his behavior and in a moment of detached clarity, decide if that is a dynamic you wish to be a part of. When he is absent, you do not feel an empty ache in your soul, because you have filled your own life with purpose, with passion, with joy. You are not waiting for him to return. You are simply living your life, and his presence is an invitation, not a necessity. The love that grows from this soil is not the hot, fleeting fire of projection, but the slow, deep warmth of a fire that is built to last. It is a love that is forged in the crucible of reality. It is a love that says, I see you as you are imperfect, flawed, and beautifully human, and I choose you. Not because you complete me, but because you are a worthy companion on this magnificent journey. This is the final and most liberating truth of all. The love you seek is not in another person's heart, but in the depths of your own. When you find it there, the search ends, and the real love story begins.